Welcome to Tabletop TV or Talk. Sorry, I've been doing a lot of. I was gone for the last episode, so
Yeah.
I was working on Tabletop TV for you guys. Welcome to Tabletop Talk, though. Today it's going to be I myself, Kyle. We have Rick and Jeremy with us today.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, I know you guys have to deal with Rick again.
I know, but at least
this
it's not
time you
just
got
me.
this
and
time you got
someone
some
else.
moderators
Yeah.
and all.
Yeah.
So
I was worried it was going to be another solo two-person with Rick and someone, but we finally have a bigger group.
I was worried about that too, and so the group chat proves that I was going to make today another Tabletop TV day if it was just me and Rick, but Jeremy was able to make it in.
I was. And you know what, Rick, just to ease your main character syndrome, I want to say that I think the episode with you and Kyle was my favorite episode, where you got about half of the episode, and then the next episode that's going to play, that's with me and you when it releases. Sorry, it has not released when I am saying this right now.
I was going to say when it released, but we have not heard yet.
Yes,
No.
I have not heard it yet, but that will probably be another one of my favorites. So I'm just going to leave now so that you two can have just the Rick plus one.
You
Plus
said-
one. See you later.
You said this is to ease my main character
producer-
syndrome, or like pump it up? 'Cause
Yeah,
And the
it's to
producer pulled the chain on
ease-
Jeremy.
It's to
He's back.
ease your main character syndrome from running away.
Oh, okay,
It's to
perfect.
pump you
Enable
up.
it. Yeah,
to
you're enabling
enable
it.
it. Yeah, I know.
Producer Chris, I do think you need to start adding a chain sound effect at some point on here, because we always talk about us on chains and you pulling us.
I do have a note on that.
That's good. Now, anyway, I wanted to talk about the 2024 core rulebook, but just with what's happening on D&D Beyond. Are you guys good with that?
Yeah, they had recently just let out articles about how they were removing all the 5e spells and magic items, right?
Yeah, so they were going to remove the magic items and the spells and different character things with building your character. So when you're creating a new character. Now, what's great about it is they released a new article and an update to their rule set changelog. So let me just read this real quick.
Before you start, I just wanted to say, excuse us, guys. This is actually going to be a little bit more of a news update or episode. We don't often cover updates on things. I know we just started with the new edition, but we've just decided with how big this was of a topic, and it was something that got us all really talking, that we thought it'd be better to talk about it with you guys this time around.
Yeah, welcome to Tabletop News, where Jeremy, Rick, and Kyle, and we're going to bring you everything that we want.
That's right, Jeremy. Today we will be talking about the new changes on D&D Beyond. Beyond.
I got nothing. I can't. I got nothing.
Sure, he could do Donald Duck, but he can't do a 1920s newscast.
I was honestly just waiting for you to whisper Beyond into the mic.
Yeah,
Okay, so here, you can if you want.
I think he just
Okay.
did.
It was
Yeah.
too quiet.
Wow, yeah, I talked right over that. He did whisper, everyone. For everyone watching this, which is none of you, he did whisper. So here's what they said. So this is on D&D Beyond, and you can go D&D Beyond /changelog. And it says this. Last week, we released a changelog detailing how players would experience the 2024 core rulebooks on D&D Beyond. We heard your feedback loud and clear, and thank you for speaking up. Our excitement around the 2024 core rulebooks led us to view these planned updates as welcome improvements and free upgrades to the existing content. We misjudge the impact of this change, and we agree that you should be free to choose your own way to play. Taking your feedback to heart, here's what we're going to do. Players who only have access to the 2014 Player's Handbook will maintain their character options, spells, magical items, and their character sheets. Players with access to the 2024 and 2014 Digital Player's Handbooks can select from both sources when creating new characters. Players will not need to rely on Homebrew to use their 2014 player options, including spells, magic items, as recommended in previous changelogs. Please note, players will continue to have access to free shared and purchased items on D&D Beyond with the ability to use previously acquired player options when creating characters and using character sheets. We are not changing players' current character sheets except for relabeling and renaming. Examples include races to species,
one we've covered many times on here,
inspiration to heroic inspiration, and cast spell to magic. We're dedicated to making D&D Beyond the ultimate digital toolset for Dungeons & Dragons, continuously enhancing the platform to ensure you can create, customize, and play your game just as you envision it. From your first one-shot to multi-year campaigns and everything in between, we're grateful to be on this journey with you. The D&D Studio.
Where was that posted at?
That's on dndbeyond.com/changelog.
Okay, perfect. I didn't remember if you mentioned it ahead of time, and if not, it was just a good making sure anyone who wants to read it themselves, it's out there for them.
Yeah, and I thought this would be an interesting thing to talk about because a lot of times when you have some sort of IP that you really enjoy, some sort of game or movie, TV series, something that you really consume, and it's owned by a larger corporation. For in this case, you have Wizards, which is owned by Hasbro.
Yeah.
You have a lot of changes that are pushed from top to bottom, where it's about money and investors. And yes, in order to create opportunities to get money, they have to create good content, right? But this was a welcome change for me that they rolled back something.
Yeah, same here. I think I was the first one who sent the original article to everyone in the tabletop chat we have going on. I know Rick jumped in with another article, and you were pointing out just varied wordings.
So the first one that you sent was not even reactionary. It was just, hey, they're updating it, but it was the nuance of how you phrase it. I think that first one said they're taking away the others, the 5e version of magic items and spells, and replacing with the new version, the 2024. And I immediately, on reading that, was like, I don't like the way that sounds. Yeah. And I went looking for any other source that had the article, because that's a big deal.
Yeah.
There were quite a few other pages, and I think I found one and I shared. And it used the wording of the magic items are being updated to the new core rulebook. And it's not quite as an aggressive of terminology, still accomplishing the same thing.
Yeah.
But just like the way, it was very interesting to see the way that different sources and sites
are focusing
on these changes.
Think about how even some of us talk on here. We don't try to, give off our biases too hard on this channel because we're all here for the same reason. We like to game. And we like to nerd out with each other.
The only bias I will firmly stand by is that Arda and Lord of the Rings is probably the greatest thing that's ever existed. So that's a bias that's never going away.
Nobody's argued with you on that one.
I'm just making that clear.
Is it a bias for Lord of the Rings if it's for Lord of the Rings? Because I thought that's just what's right.
Yeah.
It's propaganda.
I will say this changelog is like super shocking in a good way to me.
Yeah.
It seems like something that would have happened for D&D Beyond to do before they were bought out by Wizards, and then thus like the chain of going up. Like D&D is owned by Wizards, Wizards is owned by Hasbro. The further up that you get, the farther away from like end users and the people who actually play are. Yeah. And it's very unique in a great way that end users and like feedback had been heard. Particularly because this is also financially tied to the company, parent company itself.
The channel itself, we have our own D&D Beyond account.
Yeah.
It's TabletopTV as well. And I personally have put well over like $160 into that to get everything hooked up and set up for us. And I got us a membership. And it was not very long after I got the membership that article came out. And so that immediately put my my hind cackles up
and some feathers there.
Yeah, just because I was like, well, hold on a second. I'm putting money into you and I just bought all this stuff and now I'm going to lose all of it. So I'm happy that they are now kind of fixing that. And I give them props because this is a huge change already on their channel.
Yeah.
It was built around 5th edition. This channel wasn't out beforehand. They didn't have it for 4E. They didn't have it for 3.5. it's probably one of the best tools out there for a D&D user who plays
for sure
like,
one of
casually.
the top tier ones. Like,
Yeah.
if not, an argument can be made that it is the perennial and best outlet out there, but it is inarguably a top tier resource. But yeah, it's especially considering that this core rulebook is supposed to be a pretty flagship financial piece for Wizards, for Hasbro, for all of them, for them to then say, hey, you can also do this in a way that you can still use all the stuff you previously had.
Well, and Hasbro's been like hemorrhaging money, so I know that they've been tightening up on Wizards of the Coast, and I think it's because that's where currently most of their money is coming from. I could be wrong. I don't have the statistics. I'm just going off of hearsay.
Of Hasbro not doing well, they are actually auctioning off a ton of their Power Rangers stuff that the company has on hand.
What?
Because they are more than likely not continuing that franchise. Like, they have like on-set movie costumes that actors would wear, not necessarily the like Japanese original, like, because a lot of the costume fights in Power Rangers is footage from Japan in the original series over there. But sometimes you'd have your actual characters in their costume when they like show their face, or some costumed with the helmet. They're selling in auction those costumes for like every single generation of them. They're offloading a bunch of their like hard content stuff. It's like, I so desperately need a White Ranger costume, but also at the same time, why are you getting rid of all of this? And
I will say, this might be the first time we've talked about like a business thing and involving nerdy stuff that producer Chris's muscles went tense naturally on there. He was just rolling them. But going back to this, I'm almost wondering if the reason they initially made the quick change, and if you guys have other thoughts, like, this is just my personal theory, as someone who is openly not as excited for this newest edition of D&D, I think there's going to be plenty of people who like it. I personally, just as someone who's been playing since 3.5, I'm not a fan of where all the rules are going. I think 5e, it has some flaws here and there. I think it's the best we've had so far. And it just, to me, feels like this new stuff's a little bit too much upgrading on there, to the point of you miss kind of the strategy needed originally, and it's starting to feel a little like Pathfinder, where you are just naturally a BA. You're meant to be like a one-man army. But I wonder if they jumped this, maybe misunderstanding how many people are excited about the new edition.
Yeah, it might have been that. I think it could be. This is the closest I think that like D&D Beyond can get to like a patch of a video game, where you initially release the video game and a month later is it might, honestly, most of them are like a week later, where they're like, you need to install this update. And then you just they release this thing based off of all the feedback, where people are saying, hey, this thing's broken. And I think it's really cool. It will take more, it's more coding and programming. It's more dollars for them to actually spend in the infrastructure of it to have it be a 2-system like tool. But I think that's really cool that they are doing that. Yeah,
that's a calculated risk of because there's going to be revenue from the new items, and then but will the revenue be less or more if you take out this old part? When part of some of the at least early like reactions from some of those big influencers is that you can play this new version however integrated into regular 2014 5e that you want. That's a huge benefit. That should be what they're leaning into, of like, hey, here's all these cool extra pieces, essentially turning it into a source book rather than a core rule book, and filter it into what you're playing now however you'd like. And you have to sit there and be like, okay, well, we can either lean heavy into this, which is kind of the route it looked like they were going to go to. And then they saw a lot of that interest, be like, oh, well, I didn't necessarily.
That's in a very short period of time, too.
Right. Yeah. So that means there were some loud and lots of voices being sent up, which is good. Good on good on the community for standing up for themselves and others. All right. And this only just now occurred to me, so this is going to be a slight curveball for you guys. But
random conspiracy theory here. That's
Into it.
right. We're going
Into it.
into the conspiracies all of a sudden. Do you think, and there's no confirming this either with the Sonic movie, but do you think maybe they actually intentionally did that just to stir up hype for the channel? They claimed something super radical, like they show ugly Sonic, but all of a sudden in almost no time, they fix up Sonic. Do you wonder if maybe, just maybe, this was like D&D Beyond's like thing to try and generate a little bit of newsfeed to it?
Was this their Deadpool leak?
Yeah, was this their Deadpool leak?
Did they go
You're
watch?
syncing up with me, man.
Did they go watch Deadpool Wolverine and they go, oh yeah, Ryan Reynolds leaked a bunch of stuff in order to make this movie happen.
Mm-hmm.
We need to sell more 2024 stuff. Let's do something.
That Sonic thing, I 100% believe they were planning on releasing that movie with the original design.
Really?
And the animating team that was in charge of that hated that decision so much that I personally feel they just put the extra work in to make the newer design. So they were like, you know what? Our bosses are crazy. This is a horrible idea.
Man, I can only
horrendous.
hope, but at the same time, there were already a bunch of flopped video game movies out there.
Yeah.
The Hero franchise has been dying off for like the last, 4 or 5 years now. It's still going strong compared to like the adventure time period that was Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. And unfortunately, theaters are never going to go back to like Hollywood's never going to produce that great quality of level again that you got from like the original Lord of the Rings trilogy and like the Harry Potter movies.
Yeah, that 2000,
even the Twilight movies
to like
did really good.
2018, 2019 was really like that will be a time that like movie like historians really look at with like a very unique perspective of
followed by the immediate like lack of talent that's been kind of coming out. And I think most of us can agree there's a few good things here and there, but a lot of it just feels like cash grab. And I know, again, we're talking a bit about corporations right now, but again, so that leads me back just to the quick conspiracy on that, like I wonder if it's just their way of then getting both old players and new players involved. So they did that to excite some people and to enrage others, and then fall back to say, we are listening to you, because Wizards itself and Hasbro have been getting a lot of backlash. I mean, even from some of the bigger channels out there. Jeremy and I have shared a few channels we watched that some of them, while a lot of them are excited for the new stuff, some of them have had very strong words against Wizards of the Coast for a while. I won't name any because I don't want this to be, that's not the point of this. Yeah. You can just go watch, and I'm positive you probably have heard it from other people you like to listen to. So
that's a really interesting point. Now this is going to be a reference to anyone who's seen The Office. But when Dwight takes over as building owner, he does a bunch of steps to make it seem like the tenants win him over and have victories to gain their trust and have them feel like the victors. So that is an interesting conspiracy that they're like, hey, we have all these people who are really mad. What if we do something that will make them angrier, but we flip and then we make them the heroes so they feel good about what they did, and we retain them as customers.
Yeah, I think that's might be exactly it. It's not an uncommon practice throughout history.
Yeah, because guess what we're doing right now? Talking about it.
Yeah.
And what do they want?
Everybody
talking about it.
Yep.
So we're doing it. I mean, we're probably playing into some genius.
Is that an audible agreement from producer Chris over there?
Some genius suit and tie guy in a corner office somewhere is probably like, this is working exactly how I told you it would. Or some intern is relishing in this 15 minutes of fame moment where he told them this is how it would go if they did this.
You know what? I bet you that's more common than not, that it probably is always some random intern comes up with a good idea, never hear from the guy again. No. And that's where I think a lot of the angry commentators come from too.
Now, just bringing this back to playing something on D&D Beyond and using it as a digital land or digital guidebook for your campaigns, I think there's a couple things we can look at. One, the stuff like this makes me feel like it is even more important to have a digital source that you have and you control. Like it's such a weird world we live in right now, where you go to find a movie or TV show, and sometimes it's not on like any streaming service, and you're like, I don't know where it is, and then I'm like, oh wait, I own that on Blu-ray, or Kyle owns that on DVD, you know. And so this, I'm like, oh,
the question is, what do I not own on DVD?
Exactly. So some of it, I'm like, oh, I don't want to get rid of this thing I love just in case I'm never able to stream it again. And that's how I feel with this D&D Beyond. When I'm like going to pre-order the new core 2024 books, I want that bundle of both digital and physical. So I have, yes, the physical copy, but then I retain stuff if they do this again, like whenever they do their next update, where I get, oh, I have my 2024 options available.
Yeah, no.
So, and in a transition, because some of you out there and some people that we've seen and we've listened to are kind of upset with some of the bigger corporations of games that they like, and they don't want to play those anymore, or at least give money to those if they
Games Workshop. Rick, you got to be a little more subtle, man.
But you know what I mean? Like you pay money to things that you love, and if you stop loving those things, those games, you're just kind of like, do I want to keep paying for those, right? And so I wanted to pitch it to you guys. What other games give a similar vibe to Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering, or Warhammer, stuff like that, if you are no longer interested in those corporations and you want to pivot?
Yeah, this is actually something I'm excited about, and stuff we kind of want to cover over the channel as we get a little further. Just there's been a lot going on with D&D lately, and especially after we started the channel, so we haven't had much of a chance to pivot away yet, especially just with the new edition. It was just how timing has worked. So for those of you out there still waiting for like Call of Cthulhu and other things, we promise we are getting to it, and make sure you hit up the Tabletop TV channel, because we're going to be adding pretty soon here. We'll be adding some campaigns, I think, in the next month or so. I know that's not very soon, but with how fast it feels like everything goes, won't be too long. So the bringing up Warhammer, that's a great one on my end, because I used to play Warhammer all the time. I've literally owned every single army from each game.
Dang.
At some point. And
that's even more expensive than like Magic the Gathering.
Honestly, if I like didn't pay for that stuff, and let's just say I like hypothetically kept that all in like a vault somewhere,
hypothetically,
yeah,
stuff.
That I kept the money that I spent towards Games Workshop, I probably could have afforded to go to Harvard. Now, I didn't have the grades to go to Harvard or the drive to, but that's not the point. The point is I could have afforded it. No, and over the years, I've been now selling it out. Jeremy's currently helping me on Facebook Marketplace sell the last few of my fantasy / Age of Sigmar stuff, because as time has gone on, I'm not a fan of how Games Workshop runs things. So that hits a problem, because I have that itch to play some kind of combat tabletop game, be it a war game or something even similar to I can't remember the name of it, but they used to have a small version of Warhammer 40K in other things they had for like fantasy.
Warhammer 2K.
Yeah, Warhammer. They actually do have, it's not 2K, but they have 20K.
Nice.
It's like older versions of the armor and stuff. Anyway, they used to have a few games that were like more of one unit on one unit, and the models moved separately. What I have found that I've really been enjoying, and there's two of these games, but one of them is, again, owned by Hasbro, that one being X-Wing. And I think it didn't do as good as Armada, so you don't see as many X-Wing figures out anymore, where you played in the Star Wars universe as literally just individual ships. So you could have like a unit of just like 3 X-Wings versus like 6 TIE fighters. That was really fun. Of course, that's owned by Hasbro, so if you're mad at them, not going to help. But the other one that I really, really enjoy, and I really want to teach you guys, but it's going to take a couple times outside of tutorial to teach you guys this, is Marvel Crisis Protocol. It was created by Atomic Mass Games, and they have a few other really good games out there. They have a few Star Wars games as well. To my knowledge, they're not affiliated with Hasbro. And I know they're not affiliated with Wizards, but who knows once they do the Marvel release with Magic.
Yeah. Whenever that is, they still have yet to confirm when it'll happen.
But with that game, you get to pick your own favorite heroes from the Marvel universe, heroes and villains. And producer Chris and I, when it first came out, me and him went 50-50 on the starter box. And we each took one side. He took most of the good guys. I took most of the bad guys. Then he took Crossbones. I took Spider-Man because we were picking one by one, and it just happened that way.
Yeah, he took one half. He bought one pack, and then I bought another one, and we took the opposite.
Yeah, and then didn't we do it again? So we'd each have everything? Yeah, we did it one more time. So we each have double the cards, double the everything. And
that sounds like a me type of thing of like, so if I'm going to get this with someone, I need to have everything. So why don't I just buy it twice?
Well, well, and it was kind of we wanted to just get started and see if it was any
test
good.
it out.
And I didn't want to put Chris in a spot where he didn't have anything or he felt like he had to borrow my stuff and couldn't get into it. We were trying to find games because producer Chris likes to play a lot of online games. So I buy a lot of them or he'll buy me some, and we'll do that. In turn, I try to get him into my stuff. So I've given him a bunch of Age of Sigmar guys, and me and him went 50-50 on this. So, we try to even out each other's we get it. You have that thing you need to do. You got that itch. We've been buddies a long time. So anyway, I would say Marvel Crisis Protocol, though, is a really good jump to on that.
And I will note that I have never played Warhammer. It always seemed so intimidating to me. And I've played Marvel Crisis Protocol with Kyle 2 or 3 times. And it is a ton of fun. For me, it felt like League of Legends. It felt like MOBA, but on a board, which was really cool. And I got to pick the characters I wanted to play, or I got to pick the characters I know Kyle wanted to play.
Yeah, that was
I would
frustrating.
take.
He made the first time we played, I was trying to be nice and let him have kind of first pick, and he picks his team, and this whole time I'm like, man, he's just picking everyone I want. And then he openly tells me right as we go to play, he's like, honestly, I didn't really know who I wanted, so I just thought, who did I think you want? And
classic.
And right there's just love, friends.
Yep.
That is
really,
love.
In order to annoy your good friend, you also have to know them well enough. If I want to pick everything Kyle likes, I have to know what he likes.
I think you basically even used that for how to confuse your DM.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and that's a pro tip, a player tip for everyone. For your DMs, if you truly love them, the best way to annoy them is to do something that they love or they would love to do.
We can't be fully mad at you for the fact that you recognize it, but we're pissed about the fact that you used it against us.
Exactly.
My least favorite part of stuff like that is when it clicks in your head that they're doing it specifically to spite you. It's oh, they picked a character I like, and they did it again. And then you're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
And then it gets, you have that moment of frustration, but then it turns into okay, we're doing a thing here. Yeah, this will be fun.
Yeah, and if you're ever playing Marvel Crisis Protocol with a friend, they invite you over and you're using their stuff, right? Kyle.
In my case, I own already
everything.
Not everything. I almost did. I was very close. I actively was, when it first came out, I was actively trying to collect every box. Chris is aware, and I got close. I got really close till they went to the second wave of stuff, and now I'm a little behind. But I think according to Jarvis Protocol, which is an app you can use to track that stuff.
Awesome name.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I think I still technically own about 40 to 45% of it all.
Jeez.
And so I have enough guys, I'm able to invite you guys over to learn how to play. But this is an easy one to get your friends into, unlike Warhammer, where if I tried to convince Jeremy to get into Warhammer, like you said already, the rules are intimidating, and there's a lot of intimidation there. However, this is just like we've talked about with many IP addresses. Like, if you're a Heroes fan who likes Marvel stuff, this is so easy to get your friends into. And they only need to buy either the starter box or like a handful of minis.
Yeah.
They don't need to get repeats like Warhammer, where I'm now buying like 5 Cadian like infantry units just to make up like half of my core army. And all. And that saves a lot on painting, because I'll tell you, as a guy who's painted too many armies at this point, nothing is more tedious than painting the same exact mini for the 20th time that day.
Yeah, and that was another reason why I didn't want to do Warhammer, because
doesn't Warhammer just sound so appealing to everyone?
I'm not a craftsman, but for some people I know they are craftsmen. Yeah. Are there any other games that you want to shout out? I know Marvel Crisis Protocol was going to take a while to talk about, because it's one that is really...
I'm too passionate about
it. Well, it's a really good one, and so I think it deserves some airtime. So before we, like close out, are there any other ones you want to give a quick shout out to?
Yeah,
absolutely there is.
Yeah, there's, I would say also, if you want to go to something else that's probably good, I haven't gotten it yet, but there is Daggerheart that Critical Role helped make, as well as Candela Obscura. And we're not being promoted by Critical Role. We doubt they've even heard of us. But the point being is just like, if you're looking for that same feel and you're just tired of Wizards of the Coast and those guys, why not check out people who are passionate about it and happen to have made enough money from playing the game to kind of back some of these things? Rick, did you have a few?
Absolutely, I do. I couldn't recommend The One Ring enough.
Oh, geez. I knew it. I knew it. He was too perked up. I knew he had nothing other than The One Ring.
Is this an opportunity to talk about something that's irrelevant, that is relevant within
the producer's tallying?
Absolutely.
He is tallying again.
Absolutely, it is. It is a tabletop role-playing game.
At this point, I think producer Chris is going to get like a plush One Ring to toss at you, but I think you would enjoy it.
See, what my goal is here is to have enough
slowly convert the channel into Tolkien Talk.
Absolutely. I mean, you just said it. That's it. Thank you for coming to Tolkien Talk. But for my running time of how often and how much I'm talking about Lord of the Rings, to equally match the 3 extended edition movies altogether.
That's great. Now, I just do want to mention that Tolkien Talk is actually a podcast.
Oh, it is.
Oh, yeah.
100%. I also want to say,
to be here, Rick?
What about Tolkien Talking? No, that's because that would actually be...
There's a lot of Tolkien ones out there.
Yeah. Now, I will also say that I do have for the GameCube Lord of the Rings: The Third Age, which is a role-playing game that you can play on the GameCube.
It's so good.
It was on the 360 as well.
It is so good. It is one of the best Lord of the Rings video games that has ever been released.
If we're going to go off of like one of the best video games, I got to go with either the Two Towers or Return of the King, where you got to play as the characters.
Yeah, Two Towers was my favorite.
Two Towers, me and Jeremy talk about that actually more than I think we realize we do.
Such a good game. And
I have visceral memories of my friends and I in the Army of the Dead scene, with when you, have to beat the king in order to convince the army to join Aragorn and join the fight in the Pelennor fields.
Yeah.
But after you defeat him, you have to escape the cave before it collapses. And that level, for some reason, took us months. Because we kept trying, we couldn't do it, and we refused to lower the difficulty.
So funny.
Because of honor.
Welcome to my life now. I'm playing the new, it's not new anymore, but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game that's the Shredder's Revenge that they put out for the Switch. And I'm on the most difficult thing, and I refuse to drop it. Yeah. But going from there, otherwise, if you guys are looking for more stuff, a great place to look is Drive-Thru RPG. They tend to have, like, every month a few free manuals out there. And in fact, on Free Fridays, we're going to be talking about some of those games. But as for now, I think we've hit about our timeline on here. If we keep going, it'll turn into the next ADHD episode of Tabletop Talk. So as a closing remark, we would just like to say we love you guys. Be sure that you follow and rate. And if you can put a comment out there, you let us know how we're doing, because we think No matter what you're going through, you're going to be okay, kid.
That was surprisingly sweet for us.
That was a great
Thanks,
start
Dad.
off. Nothing I'll ever say will be better than that.
Yeah, I would think you'd realize that when we end the podcast, I usually have like 5 quips at the ready, depending on who says what. In my mind, it's just like, which weapon am I going to use, right? And then you said something really just meaningful and sweet, and I was like, let me just put my daggers away,
And
put
now
this
that
away,
they're away,
the katanas.
Jeremy's funny looking. Ha! And thus ends the podcast.